Something you can always do, even if your rabbit is on the floor for grooming, you can dampen your hands to create a squeegee and just pat them. And it collects the fur in your hand while not getting all over your house. And then you can roll it up and put it aside.
Make a sweater.
Yeah. Knit a Moira sweater. The other thing, we had a question about this guy, which is the Fur Buster, not the Furminator. It has this purple strip that acts like a rubber band. So you're basically like pulling the rabbit's fur out with a rubber band kind of. So you always want to be careful when you use this because you can easily rip their skin if you use it incorrectly. So what we always teach people is to hold a chunk of their fur and at an angle, comb in one section at a time. Of course, she's getting antsy, and you can see it's getting a lot of fur out at that angle. Oh, here, she's looking for the selective I have off to the side. But do one section at a time. Always hold their fur, so you're not going to be doing this to them or this because you're not going to get any fur out doing with it straight up. You have to do it at an angle so it actually catches the fur. And do one section at a time. You can do 10 to 12 strokes in one section, and then you can move to another. You can easily over groom a rabbit with this. So just be careful not to do too much. I've definitely overgroomed a couple rabbits before using this. But some other tools that you could use, because this brush or comb doesn't necessarily work as well as it is a Moira for every single rabbit. So you can use different tools. I really like this glove for a lot of short-haired rabbits. Like Milo, he gets so mad at me when I'm trying to use the Fur Buster on him that this is more like patting, and I can hold him close to me like this and pat and just use my hand, and you can see there's fur. I don't know if you can actually see this, but there's literally fur flying all over the place right now. Look in the glove, you can see exactly how much fur this is getting off. So this actually works really well for her as well. So for rabbits that are hard to handle or that just really hate the Fur Buster, this is a good option. I also have this safari comb, which is very similar to the glove. It has two different size bristles. It's just silicone. It's the same thing. It's a little bit gentler than the Fur Buster. The rabbits don't seem to mind it as much, and this also works very similar as the glove. Another tool that works on some rabbits is called a Furminator. It's a little more aggressive though, so be careful when you use that. And it's the same thing. You'll always want to hold their fur and do one section at a time.
This is working really well. You can see the resistance. There's a resistance that you're getting from that tool, grabbing her undercoat, and I think that's why Katie says hold the fur down, because you don't want the skin to stretch.
Yes, because it could easily tear if you're just being too aggressive like that.
But you can see how effective that is. And the Fur Buster, the rubber comb, is similar with some rabbits. It really grips the undercoat, but you have to hold the skin taut, as Katie's doing. That was Brooke's question last night. But you could see, it's an interesting, see how the different tool works better, and some are more effective than others, although that ain't bad either.
Yeah, I mean, they're all working on her probably because she's shedding.
Yeah.
But yeah. Test out different tools is my advice. They all work a little bit differently on there's many different types of fur.
And you're also keeping her comforted and distracted. You know, you're kind of hugging her in with your arm, and she knows there's treats nearby, so she's kind of getting in there.
Yep. Little kisses. Right? Okay, girl. Same with the head. Doesn't work as well on her head. I did a little bit. But yeah.
And it's interesting too, Katie, you're switching tools around. Sometimes I do that, and I'm lucky. I've got a bag full of tools, as you do. So
Yeah.
sometimes I switch around, and I'll loosen them up with, you know, the glove, or maybe like a slicker brush.
Yeah. Depending on the.
Yeah, and then maybe I'll go in and I'll dampen a section down and work on it with the fur buster comb.
Yeah, like this too. If you wet her first, like sometimes the glove actually makes them staticky. So if you wet her a little bit before you use it, it might work better.
She doesn't look like she's being too tortured. She's almost relaxing into that, the glove especially.
Yeah, this one I found to be the most like non-torturous, I guess. They tolerate it the best. She's really needy. So anytime you're touching her and squeezing her, she's okay.
I have a question. How often should I be grooming my rabbit?
Anytime you see that they need it.
Or even more often to get them used to it. You know, certainly don't ruin your and your rabbit's day by having a grooming session if you don't absolutely have to, but there's certainly nothing wrong with getting them used to these tools. And as you can see, Katie's interspersing it with strokes and pats, and knowing that Moira likes to be kind of cuddled into, you know, her arm and her side. Katie's using other techniques to keep Moira engaged and not hating every second of this. So
yeah, like I don't know if you can see her here, but I've noticed like a lot of the time I can kind of snuggle their head into my body, and then I can work like this.
Yeah.
So she's not trying to launch back or forwards or run off the side. She's like feels comforted in being closer to me.
And if people have live with others, certainly somebody can pat the rabbit's head.
Yeah.
Well, another person grooms. You have to just try different things.
Experiment. Yep, that's what works for your bunny, but always on a surface higher than the floor.
All right. Brooke asks, "What's a good method to get a difficult bun on the table?"
Well, our lifting technique is always good, or you can lift them in a litter box. If you can wrangle them into the litter box or into a carrier, if they're really difficult to pick up and you're not comfortable lifting them, getting them into the litter box and carrying the litter box over to the table is a pretty safe method.
Brooke, for me, Peanut is tough to get a hold of. Once I get a hold of him, he complies to what needs to happen. But sometimes it's just a difficult few minutes of me saying to myself, I will catch him with ease. I will catch him with ease. And I pull out all my rabbit rescue skills and just kind of chase him for a little bit. It's not the most fun part of our day. And like, you would look at him and think that I have to brush him all the time. As furry as he is, his fur is not very thick. So I brush him maybe once a month. I know that's insane, and that's probably why I get tons of fur off of him. I should do it more often, but I just don't. So when I think probably if he were easier to get, I would do it more often. But
he's tough. He's tough, Denise, and I think that's plenty often considering his personality. If you were going through this more frequently, you'd be stressing him out. Right. You know. You have to find balance.
Yeah.
Oh, there's the digging.
Yeah. Once they start doing that, it's like, okay, enough. I'm gonna just grab Mo because he needs to be groomed. Yeah. So while we're chatting, I'll multitask.
Okay. Next question is from Nicolina. What do you do to control the fur when grooming? Constance has Angora fur and it sticks everywhere. I have the comb and the glove. So Marianne, maybe talk about water.
Yeah, having the bowl of water, having the bowl of water nearby is going to really help. You can keep using it to either wipe off your tools or rinse off your tools. If you don't, if dampness is not helping with the Angora grooming, one of the things I do when I'm doing a really fuzzy bunny is I will set up what I call my ghetto air purifier right near my grooming station, and it's a fan with I use an air conditioner filter or any kind of a foam filter to pull air away from my grooming efforts and collect it all. It's hard to, we'll post a picture of it on Friends later, but I use a fan with a filter behind it. So air blows towards the fan and gets trapped in that filter as I'm working. You can see with Angoras and such, you can see it flying into the filter on the fan.
I just looked like I got so excited about your fan, but I was really so excited that Mo is on screen now, and Mo is a bunny disguised as a bunny.
Yes.
So
he has this really long mane that gets tangled when it grows too long. So I use, this is a flea comb, but it has like a non-flea comb part. So I use this to keep his pony mane in check, and I also trim it. I use hair cutting scissors that I bought for myself, and I cut it because if it does get too long, he gets knots.
He has a mullet.
Yeah.
A mullet. Hi.
Yep.
While you're doing that, I'll just quickly hold up the ghetto. I put a fan, any kind, it doesn't have to be this monster fan, but then I get one of these filters and put it behind so that the fur will blow away from where I'm working. For the really messy ones.
Sometimes I pull his fur like gently and I get fur like that.
Oh yeah, plucking is something.
Yeah.
Satisfying.
That's okay too.
Yeah.
As long as he's not pissed off when you do it.
I mean, he's less pissed when I do that than when I use the brush.
Yeah.
That's great. And do it. Whatever works. Whatever works. And you know him so well that if you can do that to him, remove excess fur from his body, and he's not mad, that's all good. And that's going to help you do it more frequently. And that's going to lessen the amount of fur he's ingesting himself when he grooms himself.
So like you see, I showed you I got all that, right?
Mm-hmm.
He's still like shedding so much after that. So I'm worried that it's not enough. Like, look, I just pulled him a little bit. Like, don't eat it, Daniel. So why do I still have so much even though I groomed all that?
Good question.
Don't know. There's nothing wrong though. It's so common. I mean, Katie and I say all the time when we're grooming rabbits,
Endless.
to do this endlessly. They're growing it faster than we can groom it out. So just have to find balance. A lot of rabbits go their whole lives without ever being groomed once, and they're fine. Does that mean we should ignore a potential problem where, you know, they're shedding too much and they could be ingesting too much fur and it could cause a problem digestively? No, does not mean you should ignore that, but it also means you should just set parameters. I think there are some rabbits who you can literally comb them bald and it'll keep coming out. But you should not do that. You should stop, set a timer.
Okay.
And the rabbits that do shed, that you really see them like blowing out, I feel like they're shedding incrementally down their body. So the fur that's up here that's coming out isn't necessarily coming out at the same speed as the fur down here. So he'll continuously shed. Like this fur won't necessarily be ready to come out when this fur is.
Yep.
That
Okay.
makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Do you guys get the head?
Sometimes I pluck Mo's head like this with my fingers. I don't know if you can see it.
Yeah.
You do
Like
damp.
this.
Yes.
I just do
And you know,
that.
funny is when there's a bonded pair, there's a lot of behavior of grooming each other's heads. Of course, they're licking, and certainly if you want to lick his head, awesome. We would need that on video, please. I've used my lips and, you know, just plucked a little bit just for fun. But that's a very natural behavior that rabbits in the wild, they do it to each other too, is they just sort of gently pluck each other's faces. You can see Mo is enjoying it very much. You can also use any of these tools on their head. You just have to be extra cautious of their eyes.